second dimension of consciousness. Before I move on, though, let me just talk about that a little bit, because this is where we start to have a lot of different things come into play in 2D. And I think I have a few slides that'll start to go in that David shared and that I took pictures of, and I'm gonna share with you. Uh, Second dimension or differentiation. You know, this is where we start to get into the yin and the yang. This is where we start to get into the hot and the cold. This is where we start to get into duality, polarity. So we see that even before we even came into the third dimension, in which we are in now, this 3D time and space, we was in a 2D, but we were just, and I think that that's more of the level of where you see a lot of the animals are right now in their consciousness. Um, the animal kingdom is more of a 2D, but the 2D goes and translates so much into our thinking and in our consciousness, because you just think about it. Every way that we think is basically, for a lot of people, is 2D. It's either this or either that. We're torn apart. We're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Right brain, left brain. You know, feminine, masculine, plus, minus. Okay, so this is the differentiation. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. And now we look at analog. David comes and he talks about in the second dimension analog, which is the poles, plus minus. And we look that on this earth is a pole, south pole, north pole. You know, we got north, east, west, south. You know, we got direction. You can either go this way or that way. You know what I'm saying? So, analog. Let's move on. Now we're talking about illusion. Huh. Hmm. That's big. I had to sit back on that a little bit. Illusion. Because when you start to get to the highest levels of knowledge, and this is why a lot of this knowledge was held back from us for so long. But I would say we can go further than that, because we, our higher selves is much, much more knowledgeable, slicker, um, in the future, in the past, at the same time than any other person that's in a 3D consciousness, or either 4D or either 5D. So really, anything in this fourth or fifth dimension or third dimension could not manipulate our higher self and our soul. So all of this really is just a lesson for us to learn, and this is why the illusion give me a lot of emotion, because the highest levels of learning, you learn that what this projection is an illusion, because you're not the body, you're consciousness. Consciousness doesn't even have shape or time. And we're going to get to that when we go all the way up into 12th dimension, and you're going to start to see that space and time does not apply to the absolute. Space and time does not apply to the infinite, because the infinite existed before space and time, because it created space and time. Okay? So the highest levels of ourself is beyond space and time. So that means everything that is space and time and matter is an illusion. Is not even the true self. It's not the highest levels of consciousness. But we'll go into that another day. So let's go on to the next thought. Okay. This is where we can really, in 2D, we can really start to tie science in. So we're looking at the subatomic level. We're looking at the proton and the electron. This is the polar opposites. This is duality. Deuce, dimension. Okay? Duality. This is where we split. Now, this is really big to really concentrate on, because where we split means we was torn apart. We was torn apart. And then even in from the subatomic level, you can see where the split, the proton and the electron, the feminine and the masculine, the yin, the yang. You see the split in our being. But from the first dimension or the first essence of ourselves, we was one. We was unity. Because a lot of people, man, going through a lot of troubles, and they going through a lot of daily troubles and struggles because of this duality, because of this splitting. Because the split makes you think one thing, and then fear comes in, and then you think another thing. So you got this temple and that temple, the temples of Solomon, Cain and Abel, right brain, left brain, masculine, feminine, the two serpents. All this is in battle and war with each other. You see? But the master's in the middle. The master know how to quiet that, and choose both or neither and stay right in the middle. You see? Mastering self, mastering urges, mastering eating, mastering exercise, mastering input of information, not letting the wrong things come in, mastering getting rest, mastering the spiritual plane, mastering recycling energy, mastering implosion, mastering time travel. Let's move on. Because we're going to get into some deep stuff. And I'm gonna give it to you clearly. I'm going to give it to you slowly. I'm not going to talk you or use words that the common person cannot understand or overstand. I'm not going to do that because that's not how I teach. I may have learned that way from different people. I am a decipherer. I can decipher things. And my ancestral memory is coming back. More and more and more, my chakras are activated and turning on and becoming synchronistic and rejuvenating energy. The Taurus field is increasing. The auric field is increasing. And that's what I'm sharing with you. And that's what I want you to learn and want you to know how to do. So let's move on. Subatomic level, we see the split. All right. Now we're looking at, he brought some deep stuff right here. Second dimension. He talks about the black hole and the quasar. And the quasar is the sun, is the star. And the black hole is its opposite. It's polar opposite. The black hole is what sucks in the energy. It pulls. And the quasar, it gives out light, matter, energy. So what he's really going back to is a Taurus field. A Taurus field. A Taurus field. And we're going to go over this so much, you're going to know what a Taurus field is. I'm going to show you astrologically what a Taurus field is. I'm going to show you physically what a Taurus field is. I'm going to show you in the heart what a Taurus field is. Everything in 3D relies on this perpetual energy system. I'm actually experimenting with it right now, coming up with inventions. You know, you got many people around the world, using this concept to create free energy. And this concept can model everything because you know why? It's already running everything. Whether you know it or not, it's already running everything. It's running everything that we can see and imagine right now. Only thing that it probably ain't running is things we can't imagine in our consciousness that only the most supreme, highest parts of ourselves, meaning source, understands and runs and maintains. Okay? So this is what we're dealing with. Perpetual energy, the cycle, the Taurus field. It's like an apple. It's like an ape. Just running. It's perpetual energy. In and out. And then we learn that in the breath. That's why the breath is is one of the most important and highest levels of things that we have, and learning about the breath. How to take air in, not in the lungs, but in the diaphragm, to where it's expanding those little sacs in the back. And you're taking the air in and you're compressing all the way in your solar plex, your stomach, and trying to push your stomach to your spine, but doing it in a smooth motion. And when you start to practice that and you start to meditate with that, see, now you're using the chi. You're bringing in the chi, the prana, the energy, the unified field that's all around you that you can't see, but it's there. And this is where you get in this energy and you learn how to cycle this energy through you, through your blood, imploding, causing implosions of bliss. DMT and serotonin, melatonin, all these different tonins flowing out of your brain, down your spine, up your spine, down your spine, up your spine. Rejuvenating your system, causing your DNA to braid and activate and taking in and rejuvenating. Your cells are splitting and multiplying, dying and dividing and coming back to one, and dividing and dying and coming back to one. Perpetual energy. Perpetual energy. Let's move on, because we're going to go into the black hole concept really deeply. And I'm going to be teaching y'all techniques on how to time travel and all of these things. Because it's this time. The time is now. We're leaving out of one age going to a whole new age. Yes, the end of the world or the end of time, that is true. But what do they mean by that? That means the end of the zodiacal time, the end of the last time, the time we're in now. Pisces, we're coming out of the Piscean age and we're going into the Aquarian age, which from my information, if it's correct, is coming up any year probably within 2020 to 2032. I first heard 2032. So we're on the cusp. And so that's why everybody's starting to awaken. That's why DNA is healing. Why? Because we're coming into a whole new group of stars. A whole new group of stars. If you stand on the equator, right, and you look at the sun at the horizon, as the sun is rising up from the east, horizon, Horus. And as that sun is rising, there are a group of stars that are there with the sun. That same group of stars is going to rise with the sun for 2,150 years. Some say 2,160 years. Okay? Somewhere in between that. That's how long of a cycle that the zodiacal sign lasts for. Okay? So we're coming out of the Piscean age and we're going into the Aquarian age.